Hey guys, and welcome back for today's video where I want to fill out a hypothetical 2020 electoral college map, and this is based on if President Trump is impeached. So just a generic Democrat going against a generic Republican. And I actually think it could be tougher for the Republicans to win in 2020 if Trump isn't at the top of the ticket, and we've seen this in prior election cycles. But the main thesis of this is the fact that Trump, when he's out there on the campaign trail, he's very populist-oriented with his message, and he has a way of firing up his particular base that turns out a lot of voters. And we saw this be the difference maker in 2016. In contrast to what we saw from the Republicans in the prior cycle in 2012, for instance, that was expecting to be a really tough election cycle for the Democrats. Many felt that Obama was going to come up short to Mitt Romney, but Romney, not the type of populist message on the campaign trail, just a traditional corporate-friendly Republican, and he struggled in key areas where Trump was able to have success and flip over those states in 2016 in his victory over Hillary Clinton. So if the Republicans going into 2020 have just another establishment-type friendly Republican candidate, I actually think it could be a little bit tougher for them in certain areas with some of these battleground states. So to start things off, I'm going to work my way from west back to east and do a little bit more discussion on the toss-up in slightly lean states than the ones that are pretty safe one way or the other. So starting up in the state of Alaska, this has been consistently strong for the Republicans, and you would expect that to continue to be the case in 2020, and the opposite over in the state of Hawaii, where it's been very strong consistently for the Democrats, and that isn't likely to change in this instance, as well as Washington, Oregon, and California. Now we move over to what could be a competitive state. It has been trending towards the Democrats. They flipped the Senate seat and the governorship in 2018. Also, Hillary Clinton was able to win the state of Nevada going back to 2016. And this one feels like it is still a lean for the Democrats, although they do have relatively competitive races there statewide. And moving one state to the south, Arizona has been trending in a more competitive direction. And I put this one as a true toss-up 50-50 scenario. Trump had just slightly won the state of Arizona in 2016, and then the Democrats were able to claim one of the Senate seats there, and they could possibly do the same thing in 2020 with changing demographics. Arizona is becoming more favorable to the Democrats in a true purple toss-up state situation. Now getting into some states that are very consistently strong for the Republicans in presidential years, those being states like Idaho, Wyoming. Now Montana can be a little bit more interesting. They've elected statewide Democrats to the governorship as well as the Senate, but in general the presidency has been pretty consistently solid for the Republicans. If we go back to 2008, Obama was able to make things really close and competitive, but other than that, it's been pretty consistently strong for the Republicans to come through in those presidential results. Also, Utah. Actually, I think Utah is more likely to go to the Republicans without Trump on the ticket, where Trump's approval numbers are not all that great in the state of Utah. Moving over to Colorado, a state that has been trending towards the Democrats, going to be putting it one step below safe for them. And New Mexico, another one of these southwestern states that's been trending in a very positive direction for the Democrats. They were able to pick up a House seat in 2018 in the most Republican district in the state, and you would consider it to be a safe result for the Democrats going into 2020. Now going into the Plains states, North Dakota, very strong consistently for the Republicans, as well as South Dakota and Nebraska, minus the 1st congressional district, which is a true toss-up scenario. In 2018, their congressional race went right down to the wire. It was extremely close. The incumbent Republican was just able to pull through in that one, but we see very close elections in the 2nd congressional district of Nebraska. Let me change that over here. I had the 1st congressional district there, but it is the 2nd congressional district in the state of Nebraska. That is the one that is very competitive. Now, Kansas, I actually think, might be a little bit more gettable for the Republicans if they bring out just more traditional type candidate, where we don't see Trump have the greatest numbers in terms of his approval in Kansas. And also Kansas might be a little bit more interesting in 2020 than we've seen in recent election cycles. Statewide, they elected a Democratic governor, and then also they have a Senate seat that could be competitive, especially if the Republicans nominate Chris Kobach. We just saw a poll recently that had a Democratic challenger defeating Kobach in the state of Kansas by 10 points, so that might be an interesting Senate race as well. Kansas, a state to keep your eye on. Oklahoma, very consistently strong for the Republicans. Now, Texas, another one of these southwestern states that's been trending towards being more competitive. We saw this in 2018, Beto O'Rourke coming up a couple of percentage points short against Ted Cruz. And it's going to be fascinating to see how this presidential race turns out. All the polling that we've been seeing with these upper-tier Democrats head-to-head against Trump has been very close and competitive. Perhaps Texas becomes a little bit safer if Trump isn't on the board. We'll see if that is the case or not, but I'm going to be putting it one step below being safe for the Republicans as the state continues to trend in a more competitive direction. And I actually think if it is Trump versus one of these upper-tier Democrats, you might even just put it as a slight lean to the Republicans. Louisiana, very safe for the Republicans presidentially, as well as Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, no question about that one, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And then also Missouri. It has been competitive at times over the past decade or two, but it has been trending more towards the Republicans in recent election cycles, and the Republicans were just able to claim a Senate seat there from Claire McCaskill back in 2018. Now, Iowa, I put as a true toss-up. I actually think Trump might be in a situation where he'd get a slight lean, but even then, you could make a debate one way or the other if Iowa's right there in the middle as a toss-up. And we've seen that the state of Iowa can have big swings one way or the other, where Obama back in 2008 won it by around 10 percentage points, and then just 8 years later, Trump winning the state by around 10 percentage points. So the first caucus state, very politically active, and we can see big swings in the numbers in the state of Iowa. And I put it as a true toss-up in this hypothetical scenario. The state of Minnesota, in terms of these Rust Belt Midwestern states, it is a little bit more liberal and democratic than your average state in this area. We saw the Democrats absolutely sweep those statewide races back in 2018. And also, Clinton, not the most popular Democrat by any means, she was still able to carry the state in Minnesota. And that was after Hillary Clinton did really poorly in Minnesota back during the 2016 primary head-to-head against Bernie Sanders, but she was still able to carry the state in 2016, although it was very competitive. Now, moving down to the state of Illinois, this is the safest Democratic stronghold here in the Rust Belt. Indiana has been trending a bit back towards the Republicans, and especially if it's a scenario where Mike Pence is at the top of the ticket, then you would definitely put Indiana as an extremely safe scenario for the Republicans in that instance. Moving over to Ohio, another state that's been trending towards the Republicans, but I think it could be a little bit tougher for an establishment Republican figure going against a Democrat as opposed to Trump. Trump is quite popular in certain areas of Ohio, gets a lot of voter turnout for the messages that he brings into the Midwest. And this is where I think an establishment Republican candidate isn't going to do as well as Trump, and that's in a lot of these key Midwestern states. So I still give Wisconsin as a slight lean over to the Democrats, as well as Michigan and Pennsylvania. Now, these three states all went to the Democrats statewide for their governorships and their Senate races back in 2018, which is a very positive sign for the Democrats potentially taking these and flipping these back over to their side in 2020 after Obama had carried these two states back in 2008 and in 2012. Now moving into the Southeast, I think Florida, a true toss-up state in this scenario. If it was Trump, I'd actually probably give Florida as a slight lean over to the Republicans, but the prior Republican candidates, Mitt Romney and John McCain, both came up short against Obama in this state. And with just your traditional Republican going against one of these upper-tier Democratic contenders, I feel like Florida would be another very intense battleground scenario going right down to the wire like we always see in these presidential races in their state. Georgia, becoming a bit more Democratic as the years go on. We've been seeing those statewide election races get closer and closer, but it's still one that you're going to be giving a lean and the advantage to the Republicans. North Carolina, I give that one as a true toss-up. That's what the polling has been indicating. It's been very close, or even giving a lean over to some of these Democratic candidates against the Republicans in that Senate race. Is going to be very close and interesting to see how that one plays out. It feels like the Democrats have a really good chance at possibly picking up that Senate seat, and then presidentially, We saw in 2016 a very close race between Trump and Clinton, and I think it would likely be very close in 2020 as well. Virginia has been trending towards the Democrats. If we go back 10, 20 years, it was definitely more consistently strong for the Republicans. That hasn't been the case as much in recent election cycles, giving this one just as one step below being safe for the Democrats. That's what the trends have been showing us in their statewide races for the Senate, the governorship, and the presidency. All right, moving up into the Northeast, I'll start here with the District of Columbia. Extremely safe, probably the safest result of any area for the Democrats to take that one, as well as Maryland, very safe, and Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, as well as New York, Vermont. Now, New Hampshire is one of the only Northeastern results that can be interesting from time to time, and it was actually extremely close between Clinton and Trump. Now, without either Clinton or Trump on the ticket for either side in 2016, I think it's an advantage to both sides. I think an establishment Republican figure or an establishment or one of these upper tier Democratic figures that we see could be more competitive in New Hampshire than what we saw from Hillary Clinton back in 2016. But giving this one as a lean over to the Democrats, giving them the advantage. And then also statewide in Maine, going to be giving them just one step below being safe. The first congressional district, very safe for the Democrats. Now, the second congressional district, I'm giving that one as a true toss-up, especially because of the situation where we saw in 2018 where the Democrats were able to pick up this congressional district. Now, Trump won this one very convincingly. I think it was by around 10 or so percentage points. It might have even been a little bit higher than that. And since then, those numbers have receded where we saw the congressional Democrat be able to pick that one up against an incumbent Republican. Expect this one to be really close going into 2020 as well. So in a situation where Trump is impeached and it's just an establishment Republican figure going against one of these upper tier Democratic hopefuls that we're seeing in this primary process for the Democratic Party, this is kind of around where I have the map currently standing, with the Democrats with safe or leaning to them with about 278 electoral votes and the Republicans at 197, and then about 63 of them in the toss-up range. If you like this kind of content, I'd really appreciate it if you click that subscribe button, and I hope to see you guys back here for future videos.